How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling. We got Brian Alvarez, Figure 4 Weekly here. We're also going to have Roland Alexander, promoter and wrestling school owner from here in Northern California. We'll be talking about, he's got a big show late in the month, and actually it's pretty apropos to have him on because we're going to talk a lot about Tough Enough today, but that is not our number one story. The first thing we're going to talk about is that it appears that the relationship between China and the World Wrestling Federation is kaput. The two sides of her contract, Joni Lauer's contract with the WWF, expires in November, and all negotiations for renewal are pretty much done at this point, as in that the two sides are not expecting to talk anymore, so it's an impasse. It's been, I think a lot of people have known for a couple of months that there was a good chance she wouldn't be with the company after November. If you have watched, seen some of her interviews, she kind of set the stage for it. If you watch the TV, you can kind of see her being phased out. You can see her changing her look completely to fit more into the Hollywood thing, losing all the muscle mass, dieting strictly, really dieting, that Hollywood actress dieting, things like that. Basically, I think that it'll become official by the end of the day today that she probably will not be back on television anymore. And I guess they'll have to decide what they're going to do about the women's title. I guess they should have double-crossed her at Backlash. I guess some people might be thinking that today. But she double-crossed them. The story at the Backlash, I guess, I remember the day after Backlash when we were on here and I go,
when we were appalled at that match.
I was, not just appalled, but just I thought how strange it was. Well, it was, because that's not the match that was laid out.
And the funny thing about that is, Lita and China are talking about how, oh, yeah, we're all good friends, we're confidants and everything like that.
And they were. She worked.
Great friends.
She worked. Boy, did China work Lita. and all the other women. And you could see China didn't want to work with any of the women, And I think that was a lot of it was when the decision was made that China wasn't going to be able to beat men anymore. I think it all went downhill from there. And
this reminds me so much of the Sable story in that you listen to some of China's interviews, like on Entertainment Tonight, and she's talking about how, I want to go off and do things as Joni. I want to separate myself from this China character.
Well, she knew it was coming.
There's so many people that get the success with the World Wrestling Federation and think that this is something that they have accomplished on their own, and that maybe they would have achieved this level without the marketing machine behind them. And then they go out in the real world, and they're really nothing.
Well, I don't think that any of them really will delude themselves into thinking that they would not have gotten to that level without it, but I think that a lot of them, because when they're at that level, think that they don't need it to maintain that level, and in most cases, they're wrong. Sable was the perfect example, and I would presume that China would likely be as well, but, who knows? She's gotten some acting gigs. Sable got some acting gigs, so... Anyway, that's the deal there. Let's talk about Tough Enough, Brian. I'm sure you have a lot to say. And
I have a lot to say about Tough Enough today. I was looking forward to this show for so long, and I really enjoyed it. I wish they would have had more of the training footage, but I guess we can wait until next week for that. But for about the first 10 minutes of the show, they showed a bunch of guys trying to jump over a bag and falling on their ass, and trying to run from one side of the ring to the other and fall on their ass. And for a little while, I felt really bad for these people, and I was actually sad watching this show. But then about 10 minutes in, I had this revelation, and the revelation was, screw these people. Almost every one of them. Because some of this is going to sound kind of pompous, but this is just the way it is. I work my ass off. I work out at the gym. I watch my diet. And I have no aspirations of making it to the WWF. I do this because I do indie shows in front of a couple hundred people. And a better example would be you. When you have time, you work your ass off. And you watch your diet, and you not only have no aspirations of going to the WWF, you have no aspirations of doing indie shows.
I know.
Yeah, except that one match with me that I guarantee that someday you'll have. But anyway, the point is, this is stuff that we do for ourselves. And I saw these people on the show, and these people weren't even trying out for, Wacky Mountain Wrestling. These guys were trying out for the World Wrestling Federation. And they showed up in the shape that they showed up in, and I just went, how can this even be? And what was even more pathetic was some of these people, after they didn't make the cut, they were talking about how, this was my life goal. I wanted this so badly. And it was almost like they expected it to be handed to them because they had this desire inside them, but really didn't have enough desire to actually work out or get in shape. And we have heard interviews from a million different wrestlers, and I cannot think of one wrestler that has ever said, I just had this great desire, I didn't even really try, and it was just handed to me, and I made a great career, and I made $1 million, and I'm a superstar now. No wrestler has ever said that. And the perfect example from the last couple of days would be Pete Gas, who has been released from the WWF, a childhood friend of Shane McMahon. This guy grew up with the McMahons. And sure, he got in easy. He broke in easily because he was friends. But from that point on, it was up to him, and he couldn't cut it, and now he's gone. Being a friend of the McMahons in the long run meant absolutely nothing. And I just could not believe some of these people on this show showing up the way that they did, thinking that just because they had this desire and could go into character, most of which were horrendous, that they would just be pulled into the WWF and become superstars in the main event, and
or because they had implants.
Oh yeah.
But I mean,
and I actually felt like Taz for a moment when that dude, I think his name was Tom. I wanted so badly for Tom to make it, because I just wanted to see Taz and Al Snow and even Jackie just beat the hell out of this guy.
Oh,
but
the one who thought he was God's
Tom did
gift
not make it.
What about the one who thought he was God's gift and did make it and then backed off at the last minute?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That guy right there.
Yeah.
I was so sad when I heard he pulled out.
Yeah, I almost, and again, I haven't talked to anyone since the show, but watching that show, I had a feeling that may have been, there are going to be, reality TV and autobiographies that are supposed to be truthful and things like that. The reality of a lot of this is that because it's television, there's always, what's the word I'm looking for? Fudging? And I almost thought that they put him there because his stuff was so compelling, but the other guy who ended up getting his last-minute slot,
was a much better choice.
When I was looking at it, well, first of all, he was a big, good-looking guy. Okay, the other guy really didn't seem to have anything other than the fact that you kind of wanted to see him beat up. Okay, and I almost got the impression that the producers kind of have. Here's this story of this guy who was actually cut, and we're bringing him in case he does make it. Okay, and not that it's fixed that he's going to make it or anything, but it makes they're trying to make good television stories, and I almost. Again, I could be dead wrong on this one, but I almost thought that was a little too hokey for me. Like, Wait a minute, all of a sudden, this guy who, when I was looking at it, I was going like, well, this guy's being picked for sure. He's cut. He's sad he's cut. And then all of a sudden, there he is with this other guy, the arrogant guy, where I'm going like, except for the fact that I kind of want to see him, humiliated just because of his attitude. We all know he has no prayer. And they're not picking guys with no prayer, although I think there were one or two guys in there.
Well, I think they might have, if the guy that made it was on the bubble, I can almost see them dropping him in favor of this other guy who has no chance, just because for the sake of good television, you want to have one guy in there that thinks he's God's gift to life, and he just gets destroyed.
Yeah, I guess.
That's almost a better story right there.
Yeah, I like that guy who was cut coming in. It seemed like kind of too good of a story, especially because if it was somebody else that was on the bubble, like someone who was really a marginal choice on the bubble, I would have believed it and go, okay, it's marginal. But this one was like, there were 3 or 4 guys only that when you're watching all this, where you're going like, well, these guys for sure. And he was one of them. And then all of a sudden you find out he's cut, but then there it is in that last scene. Hey, guess what? He made it.
Yeah.
But the other thing was, think about this, Brian. There were 2,500 tapes sent, and there were like 200 people who were invited, 250, whatever the number was, 230, I think. What about those other 2,170 tapes? Can you just imagine?
I can't imagine. I was appalled with the 250 people that made it.
Of those 230, I mean, like, realistically, of the ones we saw, except for the ones that made it, and not even all of them, but except for the ones that made it, it was like, what were a lot of these people thinking? I mean, some of the people just showed up. I mean, they just showed up out of shape. I mean, the worst thing you could do, look at what these guys look like on TV, and granted, most of them are on steroids and things like that. Nevertheless, like there were guys there that made it that obviously I don't think were on steroids, but, they trained hard, they were athletic, things like that. You're going to something like that, and you think you can make it to the WWF And I mean, like, I am not anywhere close to the world's best athlete, but I know I can jump over that thing without falling on my face. And I know that I can run the ropes. The first time I ever ran the ropes, okay, in a ring, I mean, it was like I was as uncoordinated as anyone, but I did not fall down. Do you know what I mean? I did not trip. And I'm just thinking, you know, between that.
Hey, well, you did better than me in my first match then, because I hit the middle rope like a mini.
But I think that the other thing that bothered me while we get off that subject, and I really like the show too, and I'm sure I'm going to watch it, you know, probably regularly. I think it's going to be like, well, I think I have to, and I will, and I expect to enjoy it too. Is that what was I say? As far as you know, the whole thing is that well, I don't even know my train of thought other than whatever. Where was I going with that? Doesn't even matter.
Taz was awesome. Al Snow was awesome. All those guys that...
yes, they were.
I mean, there was just... Taz, to me, I was, like, thinking everything that he was saying. When he reached over and was, like, whispering to Al Snow, I can't wait to break this guy down, that was, like, the exact thing that I was thinking. And I thought, you know, this is the greatest TV show that I've ever seen. I mean, the thing with the jumping over the bag, I was just appalled to see so many non-athletes in that ring. You know what I mean? I mean, aren't there any athletes that want to get into wrestling?
That was the other thing. I'm thinking with this open tryout that you were going to find some, you know. I mean, I was sick of arrogant bodybuilders, and there were like a dozen or so of those, you know what I mean, of the arrogant kind of bodybuilder, and a few of them, I don't know if they actually made it, but aside, you know, you kind of had like this. You had like either you had bodybuilders and like the girl who wants to be in Playboy who were trying to, you know, kind of like. You know, using that, and then you had people who were unprepared. I mean, what about just people who were like the football, the Ivy League football guy? See, now I liked him because it was like, you know, he was a big guy. I don't know if he took steroids or not. I mean, he didn't have a steroided up body, but he clearly lifted and was a big, strong, athletic guy. And you know, you look at him and go, okay, you know, he's in shape, and you know, he may be able to take the thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then you think of some of these other guys. Well, what I was going to say is, when those guys, when they did the final cut and the ones that didn't make it, I was just thinking to myself, I'm sure you were too, you know, it's my dream, like my whole life, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just thinking, like, if it is, then why don't you go to wrestling school like everybody else that made it in wrestling?
Yeah.
I mean, if your whole...
It was like they had a dream, but they didn't care enough to even do the slightest bit of research to find out that, yes, there actually are wrestling schools. You do not have to go to an open tryout to make it to the WWF. You can start on the indie scene and work your way up.
Yeah, and I mean, the odds are great against it, but, you know, let's face it, the odds are great against this as well, and, you know, the two things is the guy who wins, if this show is a hit, and of course there's no guarantee it will be, because it's a very competitive television environment, but it is a good show, but if this show is a hit, I think that the guy who wins will probably have a short shelf life of fame to where people will really want to be behind him, and the sad part of that is that he won't be ready for it, and, you know, he's going to end up, you know, if he is a keeper in like Ohio Valley, and by the time, you know, he actually is ready, it won't matter anyway. The other one is I think that they should put, and not on a pay-per-view, but perhaps on SmackDown next week or on Raw in the next week or two, they should put Taz against Steve Austin, because I think that after 2 or 3 weeks, Taz will be so over from this show that it's not even funny. And not that he should beat him or anything like that. In fact, he should lose. But I'm just saying that
But at least have a hell of a showing.
Yeah, just like have Taz go in there and go, I am just so mad at having to deal with these prima donnas, and I can't do anything to them. I want to wrestle Steve Austin. And, you know, I just think that any match that Taz does on TV, if he was over more than his push before, which he always was, he will be way more over than his push if the show is a hit. I'm not so sure about Al Snow. I mean, Al Snow, I think, is going to get over as like a very nice, smart guy, but I didn't sense that like people are going to go, oh, I can't wait for Al Snow on TV. But Taz, you know, he came off pretty good. Anyway, let's talk about SmackDown last night.
One thing I got to say real quick though is, I think that every aspiring wrestler in this world should have to watch this series. I mean, this should be put out on videotape, and you know, I don't think that there's anybody who should try to be a wrestler without watching this, because they will learn a very, very important lesson before they even take that first step.
Oh yeah, it's a great educational thing. But these guys also, you know, they really are lucky though.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if they recognize or not, but they're real lucky because they're getting on TV and they're getting good instruction. You know, I mean, like there's a lot of wrestling schools where you're not getting good instruction too.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is they're, you know, if they do, you know, show up and do well. I mean, first of all, a lot of these guys, if they do well and get cut, they probably, just because of their television exposure, might be able to do something on the indie scene for the short term, and you know what I'm saying? Because they've been on TV a lot, and become cult favorites. I mean, Rory Fox only had one TV show, and you know, people always talked about him or Cena, John Cena, who of course we've had on the show. They were only on one television special each, and they got, you know, this kind of insider cult following. I mean, these people are going to have 13 weeks on MTV in prime time, at least the ones that survive. You know, so even the ones that make the final, you know, just
plus they're going to get that exposure on Raw and SmackDown. I mean, pretty much every one of them, just because you know they're going to show clips of the show. I mean, look at all the XFL stuff we had to put up with.
You're absolutely right, because they will. They'll be promoting the show like crazy on those things.
Hey guys,
SmackDown.
Hey guys, I got a quick question about this though. Are these guys getting paid as they're being trained? I mean, are they getting, you know, room and board? I mean, is there any like incentive, or they're just, you know, they have to go through all the same stuff that, you know?
I would expect they're getting paid, but I don't know that as a fact.
I mean, I would imagine that.
I'm sure like their expenses are being paid. I don't think they're like getting a paycheck to.
Right, but
I guess they might. I don't know.
They're
contestants, kind of like a game show.
Yeah, I think that they're probably getting some money, and but I don't know that. But you know, they're getting to live in that was a hell of a house.
Oh yeah.
You can imagine Stamford, Connecticut. That's a rich place. I mean, dumps are expensive there. That was a hell of a nice house that those people got to live in.
So they're actually doing a lot better than some of the guys who are working the indie scene now. Who are,
they're doing better than all of them. Are you kidding?
Right. That's what I mean. They're saying, you know, you guys are saying, yeah, they you know, if they get this big break or whatever, they haven't really worked as hard as a lot of these other guys, you know, guys like Mike Modest and Chris Daniels and stuff. Who,
oh God, please don't bring that up. I'm going to cry.
No, but I'm just saying, who have put in all the sweat and the, you know, and the years behind it. These guys are coming in, you know, basically with nothing and pretty much getting a lot of stuff handed to them. I mean, they have to work for it, but you know, they're way up on a lot of these other guys.
Oh, yeah.
Way up on everyone. Oh, you should see some of the letters that I got this morning from independent wrestlers. They were not happy with that aspect of it, and nor should they be. It's not a fair world. But I think, you know, hey, it's a television show, and they're trying to produce entertaining television, and as a concept, you know, so far so good, I guess. I guess the ratings will tell the story like they always do. Anyway,
well, I think we need to wait also to watch the training that these guys go through, because they may not pay the dues of some people, but they're going to take a beating.
Oh, they're going to pay dues, but they're going to pay 9 weeks of dues.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I mean, they're not going to pay the dues of these guys that, you know, like a Mike Modest or someone who's, you know, been out there for 10 years working indies, learning the business, studying videos. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. They're not going to, you know, I mean, they're going to train real hard for 9 weeks. But you know what? I mean, if you're like a football player, and you're going to, you know, like before the high school season or the college season, I mean, they work your ass off too, you know? I mean, anyone who's ever played, you know, football or God knows wrestling, because that's harder than football, you know, I mean, and you know, what's the upside of that? I mean, I've done enough wrestling training to know that, you know, and there's no money in that. And that's, you know, that is hard training. And it's probably similar training to what they're going to go through. I mean, it's going to be real hard, but, you know, it's like a lot of people go through real hard training. I mean, for no rewards and no contract and no television exposure or things like that. So
SmackDown was another one of those shows that I enjoyed it, but when it was over, I just thought, well, what the hell are they doing? Which is probably about the third show in a row that I've said that now. But they lost the belts, and it was about as dumb on TV as it was reading about it. And that's all I got to say about that.
Well, I mean, to me watching it, I enjoyed the show. And my thoughts when it was over was that, you know, and looking back on everything and stuff that I already know, is that on June the 4th, which was 3 weeks ago, they gave up on this main event angle as far as the aspect of making Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho into the top position. I think that decision was made weeks ago, and once that decision was made, everything that's happened since happened. And I think that what I've been saying about most of the TV in the last couple of weeks is it's entertaining TV, but it does nothing to build the pay-per-view. I thought last night's show attempted to build for the pay-per-view, but they had completely given up on Benoit and Jericho. And so instead of figuring that, you know, these guys, whatever, and I don't know why they gave up on them, because for the 2 weeks they pushed them really hard, it seemed to be working, and God knows they had hellacious matches, that they go like, instead, like whatever interest in the main event was built around, can Austin survive the odds, or else his relationship with Mr. McMahon is over, and Benoit and Jericho just happen to be these 2-bit players involved in that, incidental players in the puzzle with Austin McMahon. And I felt that they were also counting on Undertaker and Page to be more important because they give them a hell of a lot more interview time than Benoit and Jericho. And even with Austin's interview time, and Austin had a ton of interview time last night, none of it was really... he never mentioned Benoit and Jericho in his interviews, did he?
Nope, I don't think so.
Yeah,
they didn't even show up till the end of the show.
They didn't show up till the end of the show. He didn't talk about them. They have given up on that match, and they gave up on that match 3 weeks ago. And anyone who doesn't understand that, just watch that show and think about it. And, the other thing that I thought that was very smart they did was they edited a lot of Undertaker's interview out. The stuff that we talked about on Wednesday.
All the stuff about burying the company.
Yep. So I'm giving them a lot of credit that, they did the right thing there.
One of the things, in fact, I wrote about this a couple of weeks ago, was it's just so sad that they gave up on Benoit and Jericho as top guys so quickly. I mean, you look back at Steve Austin, you look back at Hunter, you look back at The Rock, and all those guys, they pushed and pushed and pushed. I mean, when we were talking about this, when Hunter won the belt, it's like, this guy's not ready. And they just shoved that dude down our throats. They did everything. And, he finally made it. But how many months did it take for him to really start to make it? And what did he have to do to get to that level? Beat Mick Foley over and over and over again.
How many times? Over and over. Remember on TV, we're going like, God, he's beating Mick Foley every single week on TV. He's got to lose at the pay-per-view. And then he would win at the pay-per-view.
And he kept beating him every time.
And you know what? And it was the right decision because Mick Foley was retiring, and Mick Foley figured, his role is to, preserve the future of the company and to make this guy a star. So, good for Mick Foley. He did the right thing. And Hunter became a superstar because of it.
I mean, all three of those guys became superstars, and it took a damn long time. And to think that after 1 week, Vince McMahon just goes, what the hell was I thinking? I can't do this. I mean, it's just like, it makes me worry about the future. I mean, okay, who else is there that he can build? And if there was somebody that was really obvious, let's just say Kurt Angle. I mean, is Vince really going to have the patience now with ratings going down to push that guy like he pushed these three to get them to the level that they're at now?
I don't think choice. So. Okay, but he has no choice.
He has no choice, but he had no choice with Benoit and Jericho, and even though he had no choice, his choice was no.
I know. And I don't understand. I really don't understand. Any more comments as far as... I thought the Kane match was a lot better than expected on the show. I thought Page was much better. Of course, that was pre-taped. Than he was
Kane
on
and Albert. Whoever thought that those two would be able to work well together? Kane and Albert are having better matches than like Kane and Benoit had. Or Kane and anybody.
Well, Albert's the one they're going to push. Because he's really, really big in that locker room.
I think that anybody that listens to this show and reads my newsletter knows that I am far from Michael Cole's biggest fan, but I thought he did a hell of a job last night. He did a good enough job that I actually felt bad for Michael Cole. I felt bad for him.
That was really well done. As far as like, as far as stirring emotion. But you know what? I tell you what, and I guess it's just the reality of wrestling and everyone knowing what it is I'm watching this segment and Steve Austin just killing Michael Cole. I mean, unmerciful. I mean, this poor guy, and he's wearing this shirt so you can see just how scrawny he really is. I mean, to exemplify that this is not a big, tough guy by any means. And Steve Austin's just stiffly kicking him. And I think they had mics somewhere because, boy, it sounded great. And you see these fans in the background, and they're just laughing. And I was watching those fans, and I'm going like, God, I mean, it's like if you're not going to be emotionally involved in this, and it's like, hey, whatever, you paid your ticket money, you can react however you want. But I'm thinking like, man, I mean, they were just like laughing. What are you going to do? I mean, he was unmercifully killing this poor man.
And it wasn't even during the beating, but right when Steve Austin came down to ringside and he looked at Michael Cole, there were like 3 fans in the front row behind Cole, and they're screaming, "Get him!" And they're pounding their fist in their hand like this. And I just thought, oh, my God. Yeah. Everybody wants to see poor Michael Cole get beaten up.
Yeah. I'm going to hit a few emails. Let's see. What is the relationship between Shane Douglas and Paul Heyman? There is none. Does Douglas have even a slim chance of getting into WWF or WCW? Yeah, slim. I'd say very slim.
Pretty soon.
Let's see. Yes. What is Alex Wright and Bam Bam Bigelow's contract status? Alex Wright is still under contract to Time Warner. He does not have a 90-day cycle. I'm not sure how much longer. Bigelow, I think, is a free agent right now. I'm not positive of that. How long is Tiger Ali Singh signed? I don't know. Does Tiger's
I think
father
that guy
still...
hasn't been cut yet.
I know. Does Singh's father still wrestle? I don't believe he still wrestles. Whatever happened to Babu? Babu's wrestling for IWA in Puerto Rico, Pablo Marquez. When was the first match ever between Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant? It was in Dothan, Alabama, and I'm guessing it was in the late 70s, like maybe 79, maybe 78, 79 in Dothan, Alabama at the Houston Farm Center. Anything new with WCW getting either SmackDown or Raw, or is Wade Keller blowing smoke up everyone's ass? I think Wade Keller is... I don't know what he wrote, but it's not... I have a feeling he's probably right, or pretty close, of something. But I don't know exactly what he wrote, but yeah, pretty close. Let's see, any chance of getting Bret Hart or Eric Bischoff on the show? Eric Bischoff, I'm sure we'll have on the show at some point soon.
Plug in the pay-per-view.
Yeah, or plugging, the Mat Rats or something. But, or whatever projects. He's involved in a lot of different things. I just talked to him yesterday, believe it or not, about a lot of different projects. And Bret Hart actually was going to do the show just a few weeks ago. And then that thing happened, with Calgary, when the WWF did the show in Calgary. And I talked to him afterwards, and I go, when you want to do the show? And he just goes, well, everyone's going to call up about my family, and if I say anything, I come off bad, so let's just let it rest until everyone forgets about it. So when everyone forgets about all that stuff, he may do it.
So, never.
Okay, we got Roland Alexander on the line. Roland, how are you today?
Good. How you doing, David? How you doing, Brian?
Hey, we're doing good. Did you watch Tough Enough last night?
No, I was so bummed out because I missed it because I wanted to watch it really badly and at least record it. And because to be honest with you, I thought Beyond the Mat was going to go in that direction, and I thought it would have been great for fans to see what it really takes to become a wrestler and what you got to go through, and it's a lifestyle change, and so I was kind of bummed out that I missed it. But we've had so much going on around here that I just couldn't get away.
Oh, okay, because I'm just interested in how I don't know. This is a good question, because actually the one thing that you will see more than any of us is people coming through your door or calling you up on the phone and say, I want to be a wrestler and I want to join the school. What percentage of them have any clue what this really is?
Boy, I really hope this doesn't hurt our boot camp business, because I'll tell you, the percentages are so low. And I'd like to think that the percentages with us are a little higher than most other training schools, but when I first started the training school, there was still that old school mentality where, let's break people down, let's discourage them, let's take their money, and they're not big enough, they're not 230, 240, and I think it's because I had a lot of sour grapes about not being a big guy myself, not having the genetics, and really being lazy, not wanting to work hard enough on my body to get to where I wanted to be a wrestler, that I thought, this is something I'm going to do for the little guy, and so I've given almost everybody an opportunity that walks through the doors, and I remember the Matt Heisen story. He was 135 pounds, and I was impressed with how tough he was in the ring and stuff. And I try to encourage everybody. Let's push this guy. Let's convince him to not just go through the manager's camp, but go through the rep, because I think this kid is good. And that's how I've always felt.
I told everyone that's Spike Dudley for those who don't know the story.
Yeah, and that's how I've always felt about, I feel if you're a little guy and you work hard and you got a good you got a good attitude and you're dedicated and loyal and it's your dream and you just go for it. I think little guys should be given an opportunity. Look at the things that Rey Mysterio Jr. did. And so, we had the attitude where let's take everybody, and naturally for business that's good but you'd be surprised at the percentages. I mean, I'd say out of every 100 people that walk through those doors, I'd say maybe 30% make it in APW. Okay, now APW is just a minor league feeding system, and Jesus, you got no shot at doing anything else if you can't make it with APW. And of this 30 to 40% that make it with APW, I'd say probably 10% at the most will have a shot at the big time, the major league. So out of every 100, maybe 3 or 4 have a shot at getting to the WWF. Guys like a Michael Modest that walked through the door, I've always been told by the old schoolers that, God, you're lucky if you were to be in business 30 years, you're lucky if you get one guy like that walks through the door.
Now, when people come in to train, do you get people that seem to think that you could train like a dead man? Like they can come in with absolutely nothing, and the training will make them a wrestler, give them a body, and all that stuff?
Yes, and yes.
Wow.
It's amazing. Like, I don't want to get into people's heads on what they think, because everybody has a right to pursue their dream, but sometimes we're amazed at the kind of people that walk through our doors, and they've got enough for a $500 deposit, but they don't even own a vehicle, and they think that they're going to walk through the doors and there's going to be a gimmick table, and because they're so brainwashed by what they see in the WWF, and even some of our students today, they say, well, why am I working so hard on this wrestling part? Like, I watch WWF and they're not wrestling, and it's very difficult to tell a student that, listen, this is the way we do things, this is the way you got to do things, like it or not, and someday the business may go full circle and may come back to wrestling. So this is to your advantage to be able to know how to wrestle,
But even if not, if you cannot wrestle, they will not take you. Even if they don't make you on television wrestle a 20-minute match, the fact is that there will come a time where on the road you're going to have to do 8 or 9 minutes, but be able to do the transitions and all of that stuff.
Look at the pay-per-views.
I would like
that's right. So. Pay-per-views. That's the thing you know. I mean, on a WWF pay-per-view, if you're in a main event spot and you can't pull together a 25-minute match, you're not going to keep that spot.
And I would like to think so. And when regional wrestling existed, you could work 5-6 nights a week. Ted DiBiase in his rookie year probably had 250 matches at least. And today in indie wrestling, like, we're a pretty active indie, and we don't do more than 2 shows a month. And so that would take somebody 10 years to get that kind of experience. And so we put more of a stress on the training. And I'd like to think that you can be, but it doesn't happen. The industry, I don't know, it's so much based on look. It's so much based on credentials. And I'm not picking on everybody, but you take a Mark Henry who's put in the ring just solely on credentials alone,
But he didn't. Ultimately, he didn't make it though.
Yeah,
but he did get a chance.
He was never really trained, and now they're going back to square one with him, and it's like that should have been done to begin with. I think,
Mm-hmm. Well, part of the thing was that you coming, and I'll tell you what. Now we look at this in hindsight. The greatest thing that ever happened to Kurt Angle was that he turned down that first job, because they offered him. He was coming right off the Olympics. And they wanted him on TV, like right after the Olympics, to capitalize on this Olympic gold medal, and he would have been so not ready, and people would have just, he wouldn't have made it.
As talented as he is, I think you're right. I don't think he would have been as successful as he is today. And I think if they'd have held off even a little longer, he might have even been more successful. I mean, as talented as he is, there's a guy that if you gave actual 2-year training program to, he'd take full advantage of it, and he'd come out raring to go,
But guys like him, they're one in a million or maybe a million.
That's the guy Buddy Rogers was talking about. He says you could own your school for 30 years, and if one of him walks through the doors, you're going to be lucky. You're going to be
Kurt Angle,
yeah, the greatest gift in the world to you. And that's how I felt with Michael Modest. And when Donovan Morgan walked through the doors, even though he's starting to walk in those Mike Modest footsteps, he wasn't that. Donovan Morgan has really worked to get to where he is today, and so. He's not one of those guys that walk through the doors and you just go, oh my God, So,
but I remember when Donovan first started out, and he was doing a lot of risks, and you could see watching him wrestle in the garage that he had the desire, and I don't think that. Maybe I'm wrong about this. I don't know if you can teach that part, and that's the key, and that's really the key in this business more than anything else is the fact. Against all odds, I will persevere, and if I don't persevere, I will not have an emotional breakdown. I will just keep going.
And you could see that he didn't have the gymnastic or the athletic ability that those that did similar stuff that he did in the ring had, and perhaps that's one of the reasons he got injured a couple of times. But he really learned the psychology game real well. He learned the mat wrestling. He's very impressive as far as a mat wrestler is concerned, and naturally his body still sucked for a long time, and now he's coming around with that. He's really made some strides, and those are the kind of people that you got to be a student of the game. You got to be as far as Noah's concerned, with the reason guys like Noah are impressed with a Modest or a Donovan is not necessarily because of the job we do, although I think we do a good job with fundamentals and stuff, but it goes beyond that. It goes you got to be a student of the game. You got to be a guy that's willing to watch 10 to 15 to 20 hours of footage every week of different stuff, including Japanese stuff, and just learn as much as you can learn. Like at one time, Donovan used to not watch wrestlers that were horrible, and I got on him for that. And I used to tell him, Donovan, I don't care how much this guy sucks. He's going to do one thing you can walk away with. So you can learn from everybody.
I don't like watching wrestlers who are horrible either.
Yeah,
the fast forward button's for.
Or learn some stuff that you don't ever want to do.
Well, I worked for a company one time, and I learned a lot from this company. It was the worst company you could ever work for, but I learned everything not to do in business. So.
Actually, I think I learned a ton watching WCW the last 2 years.
Exactly.
I mean, a ton.
Exactly.
Probably more than watching WWF, actually.
You can actually learn as much from them as you could from WWF because you learn about all the things not to do.
This is from Marty, who goes, can you explain to me why the house show in Trenton Saturday night has the big show against Kane in the main event in a cage? I thought cage matches were for high-profile feuds, and these two aren't even feuding to begin with. What's the logic?
Business is falling.
The logic is business is falling, and they felt the big show in Kane without the cage wouldn't draw, and with the cage it might draw a few extra people. And that's
the people that are setting the cage up.
No, but I think that one of the things is they usually do not book house shows the night before a pay-per-view. It's and what happened was Trenton is, for those of you who remember back, this was the original starting show for the new WCW television show when they were going to do those Wednesday night tapings was going to be in Trenton, New Jersey. And I think because they had the building booked and everything like that, they felt obligated the building to do a show. And with the schedule so booked, this was the only night. And I guess the idea was we don't want to put the stars on the show because the last thing we need is someone to get hurt the night before a pay-per-view. So that's why they're showing Kaner in the minute.
Hey, Dave, back to Tough Enough. Did they show, did they show anything where they try to discourage, the guys, tactics that WCW has used in the past?
No, they didn't, make them squat till they puked, but they had Taz was pretty hard on them, but probably no harder than they deserved.
Yeah, and
it wasn't trying to run people off, but it was trying to make them, right away go, hey, this is not a cakewalk, guys.
I mean, the horrible thing, Roland, was they had these guys do these what should be simple tasks like jumping over a punching bag that was laying in the middle of the ring, or just running from side to side and touching the bottom rope. And there were guys falling down on their ass left and right.
Yeah. We don't do anything out of the ordinary to discourage people. We want people to pursue their dreams, but it's sad that the numbers are the way they are. But really, without us doing anything, people just drop off by the wayside and they just come in here not prepared, not ready, thinking wrestling is something different than what it really is.
Well, you express to them when they first come in that please. Before you start, get in good shape.
Yeah,
get in cardio shape.
Like right now, everybody we're signing up for the August camp, we tell them, listen, you can join this particular camp that's in session now and just participate with the cardio stuff. And you can come on Friday nights and join our strength and conditioning coach, Greg Thurston, and do all the cardio stuff and they get dialed into the nutrition thing and the weight training and all that. Because I'm going to tell you, if you're not ready when the camp starts, those first 30 days are going to be like hell because we have a system. We do a lot of cardio. We do the amateur wrestling, and the amateur wrestling is for several reasons. One, I feel people should have an amateur background. Two, it is good cardio. And three, I think it toughens people up a little bit, and then we go into bumps. And so, the first 30 days of the camp has got to be the worst, most boring. You're not doing any pro wrestling. They don't learn how to lock up until week 5 or 6, So it's kind of discouraging, and that's where most of our numbers drop off. The dropouts, usually in the first 30 days.
Oh, I would think that, in the first week or two, because the ones think... Now, did they come in, because Brian talks to me about this, guys come in, and they have their idea for their gimmick right away.
Oh.
As opposed to, hey...
Or their big angle.
Day 3, they walk through the doors, and I don't recognize them, because they got, blonde hair and all kinds of different looks. So.
Okay, this is from Jay, who goes, it's tough enough going to air in Canada. They're negotiating a deal. It's not finalized yet, but they're hopeful for late summer. But... by the time it airs in Canada, those of you who follow closely, you're going to already know who wins.
Doesn't matter, though. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Let's see. I read on the law side, did the WWF ever come to an agreement with Stampede and Bruce Hart? No, they did not, and nor will they. I don't want to say never, because that's too strong, but at no time soon are they going to be putting a developmental territory in Calgary. They want those developmental guys in one specific spot, and that's Cincinnati, Louisville. What's the best Pride match in your opinion? I think Silva Metzger. Silva Metzger was a hell of a match. Matsui and Pele was a hell of a match. Fujita and Takayama was a hell of a match. I don't know. You got any idea of best Pride match?
No, I just haven't seen enough of the Pride shows.
Silva Metzger was really good. Let's see. Do you think that the WWF's obvious lack of interest in smaller wrestlers could lead to someone attempt to set up a light heavyweight promotion based on the success of people in boxing like Mosley? I'd have to know how to. It's so hard because, there is something there, but nobody's ever really since the '60s probably has ever been able to really pull off what would be called. Remember in the old days, Roland, you probably remember this. They used to have junior heavyweight territories where like everyone in the territory was like 200 pounds.
Oklahoma, I think, was one of them.
Oklahoma, because Danny Hodge was the big draw.
Exactly.
Portland for years and years was called a light heavyweight territory. Los Angeles, and this is going back into the 40s and early 50s.
Because even
Los Angeles had
even Chavo and Roddy, they were heavyweights, but they were really more like junior heavyweights.
Okay, now that we're talking about that would be the 70s Los Angeles, where they relied so heavily on Mexicans, and most of the Mexican wrestlers were junior heavyweights, so pretty much everyone in that company, with few exceptions, were junior heavyweights. So yeah, that was kind of a junior heavyweight. But in the 40s and 50s in Los Angeles, they had a promotional war, and they had basically the heavyweights were run by one guy, I don't remember the names anymore, and then they had a light heavyweight promotion, which only used light heavyweights, and the deal was the light heavyweight promotion had way, way, way more action, but the heavyweights drew better. But at that point in time, both did good business. Because I remember at Cauliflower Alley talking to Paul Bosch, and he was telling me about how, oh my God, when he was a heavyweight, was like, oh my God, like I think it was Hugh Nichols may have been one of the two promoters, because whoever did the light heavyweight, promotion, and he just goes, we used to watch those guys, and it's like, God, they just outworked us. But they couldn't outdraw us. And I think that mentality, as years went on...
Yeah, but you know what I think you could do is, so much of this is perception, that I think if you created a promotion and everybody was smaller, and you didn't have any giant guys to show how small these people really were, and you didn't even bother saying it was a light heavyweight group, you just had a group of smaller guys that had awesome matches.
ECW.
Yeah, just don't have a giant in there to make everybody look like a midget.
Yeah. Or if you have one guy who's 6'4", you make him out to be a giant, like Mike Awesome in ECW. Mike Awesome, they made him out to be like some 6'8" monster, and and he could get away with it because everybody else there was 5'9", 5'10".
We did that Max Justice. We are a long
Max Justice for you guys, exactly. Yeah. Perfect example. Yeah. Yeah, he wrestles a monster style because he's tall. Because most of your guys aren't that tall.
But in WWF, he'd be probably a normal sized guy.
Yeah, he'd be Billy Gunn.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's start.
By the way, speaking of Billy Gunn, I just got to say something real quick. We've been talking about how Billy Gunn had his rotator cuff surgery, and he managed to stay gigantic during the off time. Apparently, the new Raw magazine has photos of Billy Gunn during his off time, and my friend said he looks like X-Pac.
Oh, my God. You're kidding.
No.
Oh, my God. Let's go to Alan in Florida. Alan, what's going on?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Hey.
Really good.
I had a few questions. Like they released some guys, through the development deals. Were there any wrestlers out of that you were shocked that they were released? Or thought they shouldn't have released for some reason?
I didn't watch enough Memphis to really give a great opinion on it. Like, I watched enough Ohio Valley, and the guys that they released, I knew it was likely to happen for months, actually, of those, Sylvester Turkey and Brian Keck. I mean, I expected them. I had heard a lot, and I've seen American Dragon and Spanky, and they're very good. And I didn't expect those guys to get released, but that's their decision. I don't think that they felt that guys that small had potential on their big roster, and
you think that's politics, Dave, with American Dragon?
Politics. I mean, there's politics in everything.
The Shawn Michaels thing and whatnot.
Well, all of Shawn's guys were cut.
Yeah.
I think one of them, they kept a guy named, one of his guys, Lance Cade or somebody like that.
That's right, dude. You are right. They did keep Lance Cade, but Lance Cade's a big guy. He's like 6'5". And again, Lance Cade's not as good as those other guys, but I think I think that they have an idea of what they think you need to be on that roster, and I think that size is obviously very, very important to how Vince McMahon thinks. So a 6'5" guy who's 21 years old or whatever Lance Cade is, I think he's about that, who's, with blonde hair and a good worker, is someone that they would want, a guy who's 5'6", 170, like American Dragon, who's an awesome worker. I think they just didn't see him in the system. I guess that's the only answer. But as far as from what I had heard about American Dragon, I would say that, and then Spanky, those two, they surprised me. Yeah.
I thought they should have kept Christian York and Joey Matthews, but maybe if they gained some weight,
those two. But the thing with Christian York and Joey Matthews is it's all about timing. because Christian York and Joey Matthews are good, but they have like 10 guys on that WCW roster now under contract that are exactly the same as Christian York and Joey Matthews, you know, and they're already under contract. They don't need 2 more guys just like that, I guess. Not that I'm saying they should have cut them, but just
no.
You know, I mean, like when I look at WCW, the WCW roster as it stands, and again, these rosters are going to all be intermixed anyway at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look at that roster, then people go, you know, like you bring in like this guy and this guy and this guy because they're small, and I'm thinking like they got enough small guys. They need to bring some headliners to that side. Now, I could see them bringing in some small guys to the WWF side because they're kind of, you know, they got Tajiri and get opponents for them, but they are not thinking that way. So they're not thinking that way. What can I say?
Another guy, another guy. I think his name was Sylvester.
Sylvester
Turkey.
Yeah, isn't he supposed to be pretty good? I mean, he has an
he had a
amateur
great
background.
look.
He wasn't good, but he was really big.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he had a great amateur background. He looked like Bruiser Brody. They tried to teach him to wrestle like Bruiser Brody, but he wasn't Bruiser Brody. And, you know, they gave him time. I mean, they gave him time to develop. It just didn't happen.
So in other words, all these guys released, does that definitely mean they don't have another shot at possibly getting another deal later on? Or?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, if they were go to Independence or go to Japan and become big stars, they could come back. And, you know, some of these guys, Sylvester Turkey might be someone that Misawa would want. Although, God, it would be a killer for him, though. I mean, he better shave his head because the worst thing you could ever want to do is go to Japan looking like Bruiser Brody. Oh, God. but they may like him because of that look because, you know, he's 6'5" and 330 pounds. It's a big guy.
Now, as far as, like, does this have any, this doesn't mean they're not going to, I mean, obviously they're always looking for more talent, development talent. Like, how do they? I mean, like, far as how many guys do they have on development now? Because not everybody knows about every single person they have on a development contract necessarily.
I don't know what the number is, but the folding of WCW and the lack of competition has changed the whole dynamics of this. I don't think that a lot of these guys would have been cut if they were still at WCW because then they would be afraid. You know, one of the reasons they signed so many guys up a couple of years ago to developmental deals, and they were signing guys up left and right. And Roland knows. I mean, they signed Vic Grimes and Aaron O'Grady. You know, Vic Grimes long before he was ready, I felt, and I don't know if Roland will say the same thing, but the deal was that they saw this guy with a lot of guts who was very agile for a big guy, and they didn't want WCW signing him first, even though he wasn't ready. And Roland, you remember that time.
Jim Cornette, I questioned, like, you know, not that I wouldn't want to do something for my own graduates, I do, but I'm so dedicated to the business that I just mentioned to Jim, I said, you know, I just think Vic's too raw, especially behind in the dressing rooms. He just needs a little bit more, you know, grooming. And he said, oh no, you're probably right. He goes, but the thing is you got to get a guy like that because if you don't, WCW will. He said what happened several years ago. He goes, I scouted, you know, Paul White, and I thought he had a lot going for him, and I mentioned him to Vince McMahon, and by the time they reacted, he was having his second pro match on a pay-per-view with Hulk Hogan, and it was too late, you know. And so,
and they gave him $1 million for 10 years, and
yeah. So sometimes they're going to jump on those guys, you know, with WCW. And you're absolutely right. I think.
But now they don't have to. Now they don't feel they have to, and that's why it's going to be a lot tougher to get developmental deals. They're going to want those guys to go through the indies now.
Exactly, and it's not like their talent roster's not filled, so they don't need quite as many guys being developed because there's not, you know, that many guys being replaced, you know.
So a lot of these guys that don't have, like, do you think? I mean, like Hogan, for example. You know, the rumor about him starting up a group, whether or not. Obviously, he realizes, you know, I don't think they're going to be able to compete regardless for McMahon, but if he's starting a group, isn't Jimmy Hart supposed to have something to do with it?
Jimmy, if Hogan's there, Jimmy's doing the legwork.
Well, I would
Jimmy's
think
one of the hardest working guys in this business.
To realize, I'm sure they're going to have all their old buddies and guys, but he maybe some of these guys that have development deals that will not, you know, having deals anymore would be smart for them to use on their shows because they need some young guys, not just depend on all these old guys that, you know.
And I'm sure they will, but not to the extent of a WWF, you know, how you know they would do their thing. But
and also,
and another thing is, if that promotion actually got off the ground, you'd see a bunch of guys get signed by the WWF again.
Yeah, because they wouldn't want them to have. Now, right now, there's how many? I believe they have a group in Puerto Rico, right? And then there's Ohio Valley. Then HWA took the place of Memphis.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So right now,
I don't know how much they're going to have to do with IWA. I don't, you know, I mean, in fact, I don't know how IWA is doing. They were doing very well, actually, a couple of months ago, but I don't know how much they're going to have to do with IWA in the future. I think they really want all their developmental talent in Ohio Valley and Heartland, which would kind of be the same thing because they're geographically close.
And plus, they got in California the UPW. Now,
yeah, I don't think that they're going to want their developmental guys in UPW. I think that the ones who they really have, I mean, they'll have a relationship with UPW, but the guys they have under contract, I think they're going to want in Louisville and Cincinnati.
Now say one more quick question. Say McMahon wanted, or whatever, if they wanted like more territories or more developmental groups, what other groups do you see out there that exist or are decent enough to have a?
I don't think that they're thinking that. I think that they're thinking what they got's enough.
You don't think, like, for example,
they're obviously looking. No, they're looking to consolidate costs, and I think they really like the job Cornette's done with Danny Davis, and I think they have a lot of confidence in Les Thatcher. And Les is pretty much a straight shooter and a lot, and all that. And they're geographically close. Les Thatcher and Jim Cornette have similar ideas about the business, and I think they're very comfortable with those, with those two territories. I don't think they're looking at adding any other territories really.
Because I could see somebody like Alpha who has a lot of experience. I don't know how often he runs shows, or even APW having a good deal. Doesn't APW work a lot with UPW?
We kind of just were exchanging some talents and stuff. They're an affiliate of WWF. We've never really been an affiliate of WWF, and for whatever reason, our talent, like I know there was an old saying one time. Jim Cornette at a tryout said, gosh darn it, Michael, if you could juggle plates or sing and dance, I could do a little bit more for you, but, damn it, you wrestle, So, oh well, but
well, that was that period.
We're always ready to do something, with everybody, but right now our area of concentration is with Japan.
What is wrong with the creative brains in WWF? Didn't we just see a wrestling company die because they didn't get behind the young talent who deserve pushes? The current WWF mentality is just like the WCW mentality. They push a guy for a few weeks and then they give up on it. Now WWF is doing the same exact thing. Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho's push should have continued. What are they thinking? They just thought it wasn't going to make it, and they went in a different direction. This is from Paul Miller. It goes, isn't the deep push of Benoit and Jericho simply the deep push of Jericho? Benoit is injured and will most likely need time off, so he can't be counted on. That's true, but the decision was made before they knew the extent of his injury. So it was what it was. What can I say?
Yeah.
Another incentive for a Taz Austin feud. No, I didn't say I wanted a feud. I just wanted one match because I don't think they could pull off the feud. Is the Michael Cole thing, and that actually was another reason. Is that Taz can stick up for Michael Cole. Taz can say he's in a bad mood from having to deal with those people on Tough Enough, and I think Taz is going to be a cult figure. And again, I haven't gotten the numbers yet. If the numbers for that show are good. I want to mention this also. Can you address what Taz meant when he asked one of the contestants who'd taken a few weeks of Kowalski school if he was going to be able to be reprogrammed? Are there issues with Kowalski school? I think one thing, and Roland can talk about this better, every school has their own way of teaching.
That's right.
And Roland, Roland has gotten people, and I mean, I remember the story with Crash Holly. Crash Holly had been trained, and you had to totally retrain him. Is that pretty much just
It's a lot more difficult to train somebody that's been trained than it is to take someone in off the street who already, the guy that's been trained already has some bad habits. And Aaron, Crash Holly did very well in breaking a lot of the habits we wanted broken. Sometimes you teach things, there's no right, there's wrong, there's just different ways of teaching it. But certain things are pretty standard in the industry, like when you get thrown through the middle rope, you go a certain direction. And Crash being left-handed was never taught that it was universal, and so he was going the wrong way. And still to this day, I watch him get thrown through the middle ropes on WWF. He's still going the wrong way. So those habits sometimes are tough to break. Headlocks are always done from the left. There are certain things that are universal. Other things, there's really no right and wrong. Like I used to tell Modest, when they do an arm drag and they hook the arm, they should hook it under the right armpit. Everybody today in this generation hooks it under the left armpit. Well, we sort of gave up on trying to break those habits. So Mike's just put a new thing in the handouts that we hand out, and he called it the East Coast Armbar. We now have an East Coast Armbar we teach, which is where you hook the arm under the left armpit.
Also, is there any truth to the WCW is Raw rumor reported by The Torch? Very likely, yes. Very likely. This is for Brian. He goes, pro wrestling appeals to non-athletes. They don't understand it takes skill to wrestle. They figured since it's fake, they can make believe they're athletes. Foley thought that when he started. Brian, lighten up. Oh, Brian shouldn't lighten up.
God.
Come on, Brian, lighten up, guy.
I'm sorry, you're right. We need more non-athletes in this sport. We need more non-athletes trying out and disgracing themselves on national TV. You're right.
Yes. Let's see. Do you think the Tough Enough is just the WWF's attempt to jump on the reality show bandwagon? Absolutely. That's exactly what it is.
And it's a good idea.
Yeah. If it works, it's a great idea. Like everything in television. If it works, it's brilliant. If it doesn't work, like the XFL, you go from being brilliant to a moron in Vince did it in about 3 weeks, didn't he? I mean, no, seriously. Remember that XFL? I mean, after week 1, guy was the unbelievable genius.
And we all gave him hope just because of what he had done with WWF in the last year or two, because really Vince has not succeeded in any project outside of wrestling.
Yeah, or wrestling related, like a restaurant. If that restaurant was like just a restaurant and didn't have a wrestling theme, I don't know if it would have done that well.
What was the deal with the restaurant? I thought that failed at first, and they wanted nothing to do with it, and then all of a sudden they were right back in. And what was that?
It was
on the very verge of like bankruptcy, and all of a sudden they put it on TV, and the thing turned around.
Yeah, and they pushed it. Yeah, they pushed it in a totally different way, and it's been successful of late.
Wow.
I was there. That isn't between that store and everything. That's what. Go ahead.
Is that worth seeing, Dave?
If you're in New York, oh yeah. I mean, if you want to buy it, it's a great place for merchandise. I mean, as far as like it's across the street from ESPN Zone, and I mean, I went to both, and when I've been in New York, we always end up eating at ESPN Zone, not at WWF New York. I don't know, we just do. But I mean, WWF New York, if you're a wrestling fan, it's like a nice tourist place.
Right.
Let's go to Ed in Texas. Ed, what's up?
Guys, how you guys doing today?
Very good.
The first thing that I wanted to say real quick is, you know how Brian had mentioned about Billy Gunn pumping up real quick when he came back? And I was wondering, did you guys see Vampiro Tuesday night?
I did.
He looked pretty huge, a lot bigger than he used to be.
I think part of that is because everybody else is so much smaller, but I did think he looked a little bit bigger. Noticeably bigger than at times in WCW. Now, there were times at the end in WCW. Vamp got big at the end in WCW. At the very end. So
some of it too is when you're off the road for a long time. I'm not saying this is what it is, but when you're off the road for a long time and you can devote yourself to eating and working out, you can be a lot bigger than when you're touring every night.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it just kind of shocked me how he looked. But what I really wanted to talk to you about was Tough Enough. I saw the show last night and I thought it was pretty good. I mean, I really liked it. It had a pretty good concept. The only negative that I would have about it is I thought they were a little too cosmetic on their choices.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's reality.
Yeah, but it's not. It's a very unfair reality. Like, let's say if I was to have gone
Life
to
is very unfair.
the tryout myself, and they would ask me to take off my shirt, they would have looked at me as a guy 5'11", 250 pounds and the weight is not muscle. Okay, and they would have automatically assumed that I'm a big fat ass and I'm lazy and I don't have any desire, and that's not the case because the last 4 months I've lost 50 pounds. I've really made a big change in my body. I'm still heavy set and everything, but they wouldn't have given me chance number one just on looks alone. I don't really think that's too fair, but I guess like you say, that is life.
But I mean,
actually, you know what? I will say one thing defending at least some of the contestants. And that is that when they announced that they were going to be doing this, they sure didn't give a whole hell of a lot of time to get your tape in there. I mean, it was like, get your tape in by this cutoff date, which was, I seem to remember, like, a few weeks or something like that.
Yes, it was.
And I think if they do this again, they really need to give, like, 6 to 8 months advance notice before you need to get your tape in. Because, I mean, like you said, hey, if you lost 50 pounds, that's awesome. But how much weight can you really lose in, 3 or 4 weeks to get your tape to the WWF?
But, to be honest with you, when I look at an applicant that applies at the boot camp, I look for certain criteria, and some of the stuff I look for is, does he have bodybuilding experience? Does he have a martial arts background? Has he done any amateur wrestling? Is he a college graduate? Was he in the military? And the reason I choose all of those that I just mentioned is because those usually take dedication, they take devotion, and I mean, those you got to sacrifice to be successful in any one of those fields, and I think that person would probably be more apt to be successful in pro wrestling.
Okay, and how did you guys? I didn't hear the very beginning. Is this a show you guys are going to be watching and reviewing, or did y'all?
Oh yes, we'll be talking about that show every Friday. I have a feeling.
Okay. Which contestants did y'all like? Because for me personally, I liked the really tall girl because she was probably the only one that wasn't good looking. And the big guy, Moose or...
what was his name? What was that guy's name? I forgot now.
The last one they picked, the big guy.
Yeah. Not the 6'7" guy.
Oh, yeah, no, the black guy.
No, I forgot his name. The one guy, to me, stood out, and I don't remember his name, but he was a bodybuilder-looking guy. Not the one you're talking about, but the other one. There's the bald one, right? I just thought he had a good look and a good camera presence. The one woman,
there was a really good-looking black girl that made the last 25 that did make the cut, and I was very sad.
Yeah, but I didn't understand how they picked the women they did, other than the tall one, because they weren't nothing special or anything. And
well, the one was like right at a UPW, if you know what I mean. I don't mean, you know, in that she was really pretty and like, you know, she was really pretty. She had the implants, and I mean, she had nothing else. And I was thinking, and like when they asked her what her goal was, it was to be in Playboy. And I'm thinking like, you know, then again, I guess, you know, it's reality TV. You want to draw ratings. You want some pretty girls there. But I was thinking like, you know, I don't know that this girl's gonna, you know, like running in the mud or whatever they're gonna do. But then again, maybe she does. So we'll see.
Okay. And I do have one question for Roland.
Yeah.
Roland, have you filled out your tournament? Do you already have all 16 names?
I've got 14 of the 16 already solidified and ready to go. And naturally, you know, we're getting a head start on a lot of the administrative red tape stuff of you know, Week of Legends and King of Indies, but we're not going to release. If I was to release all the names now, you know, there'd be no interest. So we're going to release them a few names at a time, and I'm looking still for my last two entries.
Have you talked to Noah about the things that we talked about?
Not yet, and I think I may do so, and I may do so once Jardy returns, you know, and probably in the next couple of weeks I will, and I was also reserving a slot for Teddy Hart, but I understand he no-showed last night's Stampede show, so I don't know what's behind that, and I'm not counting on him too much.
He's Matt Rat Superstar.
Right, and I know one of the guys now that he's been released that I might look into is American Dragon. You know?
Yeah, I was just about to suggest.
Actually, that's a good choice.
Christopher Daniels could really steal the show if they got together.
But it's going to be exciting. I mean, we were just talking about it this morning at breakfast. Like when you see the final 16 that have been selected, I think you're going to honestly say, my God, this really is the best of indies in the world. And you know, it's like one of the people I told you already, we haven't released his name, but Doug Williams is just about a shoe-in. You know. Have
you talked about Minoru Fujita?
Is that the guy from Noah?
No. Minoru Fujita lives in Pennsylvania.
Oh,
but
no, we hadn't even discussed him.
Okay, just a name thrown out there.
Cool.
Okay. And let me ask one more thing before I go. How long before the tape of the tournament will be out on video?
I'm not sure, but probably within 4 to 6 weeks, my guess.
Okay, and how would I go about purchasing one? Would I have to go to your website?
Yeah, go to the website, or go to the kingofindies.com website. There'll probably be information there. That website's actually debuting next week.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Roland.
No problem.
You guys have a good day.
Okay. Another name is since he's Super Crazy.
Yeah, and I want to know more about this Fujita, because if the Noah thing falls through, then you know I do want to put a Japanese wrestler in the tournament, so maybe that's a possibility. And
Ricky Marvin is another one.
And where's he?
Just because he's never worked this country.
Okay.
And he'd have to he'd need the right opponent. But I mean, he's as a swamp flyer, he's one of the most spectacular flyers there is out there.
And where's he from?
Mexico City.
Mexico City.
Yeah, he's an EMLL guy.
And what was the one right before that you mentioned, Dave?
Super Crazy?
Oh, yeah, Super Crazy, right.
Yeah, just because WWF didn't take him.
Right.
And he's
and why do you think they didn't take him? I was always impressed.
I think they don't like the lucha style. You notice that they really didn't take hardly any lucha guys. They didn't take, they've never pursued Mysterio.
He didn't really do a lot of lucha. I mean, he still did a lot of Americanized wrestling, I thought.
Yeah. Let's see. This is from someone who goes, is MTV the one in complete control of the Tough Enough thing? Because all but one of the guys look like they are not and never will be WWF material. It was actually, they had the judges, and most of the judges were WWF people. Because Kevin Dunn, Taz, Al Snow, Jackie, the big Jim guy, those were all WWF people. They had that one woman from MTV there, but I think most, probably seven,
Now wasn't that Big Jim's house?
God, what a nice house. I thought it was too.
He said that was his house. I went, oh my God.
What a nice house. What is his job there in the WWF? They had
I don't know, but
he was something. I didn't even know the guy.
Some kind
nice
of
house,
relations, I think.
Man, nice house though. Yeah. Anyway, anything else?
I think he's gone.
It's gone. Okay, Jim. What's up, Jim?
Hi, Roland.
Yes.
I had a question.
Sure.
How hot was it in that fat suit that you wore in Beyond the Mat?
How hot was it?
Yeah.
Bye. Let's go to Joey. Is it Joe?
Oh, yeah, hi. I'm
Hey, what's going on?
You know, OP is right. I just had a quick
Yeah.
question for Roland.
Yes.
I heard, like, on the show Jim Cornette, like, a few days ago, and the other guy was calling from Texas about the videotapes. I was wondering, you know, I go to your site, you know, I go to all the shows and everything, and I was kind of disappointed, you know, I don't see the tapes on there to buy or anything, and it's kind of hard to get your product out there without putting out any tapes or anything like that.
Yeah, one of our, I'll be the first to admit, one of our weaknesses is marketing videotapes. We're not really in the videotape business. We're not, you know, like, you know, without television and stuff, and I'm not making excuses, but we just haven't probably utilized our website well enough as far as marketing videos. And the other thing that I think we do wrong is we offer every video of every show, and I think we need to just be selective and offer certain ones and really market those, you know, a lot nicer than we are now.
Yeah, and I have one other quick question about APW TV. A few weeks back I heard about, you know, APW on Bay TV or on KTSF or anything. Has that got any advances or anything like that?
I can just barely hear you.
Oh.
Any advances as far as you getting TV on Bay TV or KTSF?
Not really, but there is a lot of interest, and we're doing things on a regular basis even with KRON. Like Randy Savage was in town doing the Slim Jim tour, and he stopped here for an interview, and we were very accommodating. So we're doing all the things correct politically to try to, you know, but we're just not quite ready yet, not there yet. But I think there's going to be something in the very near future.
All right, thanks.
You know, I don't know if you saw the Weekly Pro Wrestling for, I guess it would have been the issue that came out at the end of last week, so about 7 days ago, 7 days ago. But they had a lot on Mike Modest, Mark Smith, and Donovan and Dilip.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you had profiles of them, and, you know,
is
them.
That Japanese magazine?
Japanese magazine, yeah.
Okay,
because
I think I got to look at that. Like Samoa Joe got back from his thing in Japan.
Yeah, right. It would have been the week he was there.
Yeah, and he brought us a magazine, and we had like 4 or 5 pages of coverage in the magazine. I'm going to try to get a copy of that, and I'm going to try to get somebody to translate some of it for us. But obviously they're very high, you know, to be able to. If they're going to print pictures on Mark Smith and Mike Modest and Donovan Morgan, I would assume that they're very high on those guys. So we have yet to hear from them, and actually this week we've actually been quite busy with New Japan. New Japan paid us a visit on Monday to take a look at our training school and to take a look at Dilip, and Masa Saito was here, and Brad Ringens was here, and you know, my hat's off to them. That's the first time I've met Brad, and one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet, and so you know, that was nice that we're getting our foot in the door with them, and it's nice to be wanted by wrestling companies, because that's what I think we are. You know, we're a wrestling company. Again, not to say that we wouldn't be interested in doing anything with WWF. We always are, but it looks like right now we're opening up some nice doors in Japan.
Well, Dilip could be an entree.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you know, it's one of those things that's like, you know, guys like that. I mean, I don't want to say they don't come along.
Was he like 7'2" or something?
Pardon?
I don't know how tall is he, Roland? Actually, for legit.
I think legit. He's just a little over 7. He's like 7.5 inches or something.
Wow. But I mean, Brian, he looks like I've never seen anyone like this, because he looks like a bodybuilder.
And even though he's
375,
he looks over 400 because, like Dave says, he's chiseled like a bodybuilder. He is a professional bodybuilder from India, and takes care of his body.
The tallest bodybuilder I have ever seen. I mean, I've seen.
It's just so incredible to think about that, because I mean, think of what you have to do to be a bodybuilder when you're small. And, you know, imagine being 7 feet tall.
I can't stress to you guys how agile he is. Like I thought his most impressive showing was this Monday when Masa Saito and Brad Ringens were here, and he did a little spar with Mark Smith, and what a physical spar that was, and they both looked awesome, and I think they understand that there's a lot of rawness there and that they need to develop a little bit more, but I think they also see a lot of great potential, and not to, you know, toot our horn and say that, because I don't know. Andre was very agile on his feet when he was young, but I don't think he had the body that Dilip had.
It's a different era.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
It's a different era, though. I mean, when Andre came along, there was nobody like that. I mean, Dilip, the one thing he's got is, I mean, there's guys his height, you know, like Big Show and Silva, but I've never seen anyone, I mean, ever his height with a bodybuilder physique. I mean,
I'll tell you what, he's still a ways away. He's no Andre, but he's already surpassed every other big man that's ever wrestled in this sport, and I think there'll be a time where he might be able to be compared with Andre. I don't think that's fair to Dilip. I don't think that's fair to Andre, but he's already better than
I don't think he'll ever be
even Elegante.
He's better than Elegante and Silva.
Come on now.
all
No,
those
the
guys.
thing though is as far as like I don't think anyone can be an Andre. It's just not. It's a timing thing. I mean, like you remember when we were kids. You know, Haysex Calhoun, just as an example. Okay.
Right.
If Haysex Calhoun came along now, he wouldn't even get in the door.
Plus,
But I mean, he was a great attraction.
Andre was the first guy, so there was something special there when he walked down that aisle, and he had a lot of thickness to his body, even though he didn't have that bodybuilder's body. He looked.
Oh
like
no, he was
giant,
scary though.
You know?
He was just a scary man because he was so. He had this aura about him that if you got him mad, you know, he will tear your head off.
He would kill you.
But he learned a lot of the things with the experience that Delete still needs to learn. Like, Andre always had a smile on his face, waving to the fans. Like Delete still wants to be that monster, and he's watched a lot of WWF footage, and so we got to kind of get a little bit of that out of him. So.
Just for Roland, which of the following do you find to be a better school prospect? A natural athlete without a clue about what pro wrestling is, or an average athlete with aptitude for wrestling? With knowledge of wrestling.
I'd rather have the second, and I'd rather try to develop them into a better athlete. And I know that might seem harder, but I'd rather have the wrestling knowledge.
Have you ever had someone come through your doors who you just, did the drills with, and just the size and the speed and everything, who was just like an awesome, I don't know, like a Kurt Angle or something, but like an awesome athlete, but you just couldn't program them into pro wrestling mindset?
We've had a few of those, quite a few of those. As a matter of fact, let's say if in 10 years I've had 10 of those, then I've only had one that actually, could pick up on the wrestling, and all the rest of them were just like, I don't know, it just didn't work. That's why I prefer to have somebody with the wrestling that's not quite as good an athlete, and hopefully we can turn him into a better athlete.
Hey, this is I can't even talk. For Brian. Do you remember last night when the one guy thought that Jackie was hitting on him? That was great.
Yes.
I'm glad they kept that in. They had this one of the contestants, just winked at Jackie while he was doing it, and it's like she was smiling at me, and then at the end, because I know she was smiling at me. It was so funny.
She'll deny it, but she was.
Now, did you ever have Paul Barlins come through? I think didn't he go through your doors once?
Yes. And how did he was always looking. He was always looking for a free ride, and thought he should be trained for free and didn't want to pay, and he always was trying to gimmick me somehow. And then the last I heard from him was I'd heard from his agent after he had gone through the ECW stuff, and he had been trained by somebody in Texas and was ready to go and wanted to do some stuff. And instead of him calling me, because he knew he was on my garbage list, so he had his agent call me, and nothing ever came of that. And I didn't expect it. And I lost a lot of respect for him after that whole incident in ECW, I mean, he's sitting there talking about how Taz doesn't even come up to his belly button, and how can he job for Taz. And I mean, guys like that.
He did say that.
What's that?
I had some conversations with him about that.
Yeah.
So. He just didn't know what pro wrestling was.
No, he had no knowledge of it. He thought, he had in his own mind and just like a lot of people have their own conceivements of what pro wrestling is, but they're far off base.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to Scott in Virginia. Scott, what's going on?
Yeah, what's going on, guys?
Hey.
I heard a bunch of stuff about Tatanka coming back to the WWF. I was wondering if you guys knew anything about it, because I heard he was...
Was this from the Tatanka website?
No, somebody had reported who had been to a show who had spoken to him. Actually,
I haven't heard his name mentioned by anyone. Not that it's not possible.
Guys say a lot of things, especially in the dressing room.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, it was kind of funny. I don't want to mention this person's name, but we had someone in our dressing room, and he did not know that I was listening, but he was talking to some other people about how during his time off, he'd been doing some work backstage setting up WCW, and I thought, how about that?
You'd be surprised what you hear in the dressing room.
Oh, yeah. Surprised. I bet you as a promoter, you hear that stuff. You probably hear in the like somebody calling you up, going like, "Oh, I sold out this place and that place," and you're going like, "Yeah, I follow."
I've had calls from promoters saying, "Yeah, this wrestler wrestled for you," and I've never heard of the guy. And actually, I've had that happen about a dozen times over the years. And one of the last times it happened, I actually did some research and found out that it was an old student of mine who had stiffed me for about $4,000 and was using APW as a reference to get booked, and I said, that guy has not been fully trained. That's the one thing I really despise, is somebody coming through, and not just because they owe me money, but just because they didn't learn their trade, and they'll try to tell people that they're trained, and you'd be surprised how often they get booked.
Anything else, Scott?
Yeah.
Hello?
Well, what is it?
Steve Austin. Do you guys think he's over as a heel? Because I mean, when I see him,
it depends on what you mean by over. I mean, as far as selling tickets.
You? I mean, because when I see the backstage skits and everything, I mean, I'm halfway laughing and freaked out with him and Vince McMahon. And
I think he's a wonderful performer who works his ass off. It doesn't have to work as hard as he does, but but does, and I give him all the credit in the world. But I think the heel turn I think he's a great performer as a heel, but I think that the turn was a huge business mistake. And I'll tell you, and I'll go further, because I think that anyone who denies that it was a huge business mistake is really fooling themselves. And I've heard, because even on the show, people have denied it, and it's like, you can trace the downfall, and not the downfall, that's too strong of a word, but the downward trend of this business to that turn. And I mean, granted, The Rock is gone, but it's not just The Rock being gone, because Steve Austin used to sell tickets at house shows that The Rock was never on, and he doesn't. And
it's not even just the death of WCW either, because they've already lost that audience, and they're losing their own audience as well.
That's right. The people there was something about that Steve Austin character that people really liked, and some people, that babyface heel thing, I mean, there are some people, it's like when Bill Goldberg turned, and I mean, we were just railed on everyone for it, and they ended up giving up on it a month later, which made them all, made it even worse. But, it's some characters, if you turn them, I mean, there's that saying that, like, if they're really, really over as a heel and you turn them babyface, they're going to be really over babyface and vice versa. And that's just a saying because sometimes it's true and many times it's not. Some people, I mean, if Bruno Sammartino was ever turned heel in New York, I mean, they would have been fools to do it, and luckily they were never fools. And I think the Austin thing, it was, when Rock comes back and Hunter's a babyface, that might have been a time to make the turn, but right now, boy, it was not the time. Anyway,
all right.
Anything else?
That's it. Thanks.
Okay, you're very welcome. Let's go to Charles in Connecticut. Charles, what's up? Charles.
How's it going?
It's going good.
I have a question about the rumors about WCW taking over the Raw time slot. That sounds like something of a mistake. I mean, what do you think about it?
What do I think about it? I think that it was probably, it is a ballsy as hell move, but probably a move that needed to be done if this thing is going to work. I mean, not necessarily the Raw time slot, but something similar to that. I'll tell you what, when I first heard about that kind of plan, and it was actually from Vince, I thought, that is one ballsy move. And if it was me, I wouldn't have done it, but, when he gave me the explanation as to why, I thought, what, it may be the right thing. It's probably,
and a lot of it, too, is going to have to do with exactly how it's done.
Yeah, and that's right. Because there's a lot of things that are going to be happening in the next month, throughout the month of July. July is going to be probably the most important month in the history of wrestling, and how it's all done, and how they mix up the talent, and all that. And until it's done, it's really hard to evaluate because I don't know who's going to be where and how it's going and exactly how it's going to be done either. And it's massive changes in this industry between now and the end of July.
I mean, do you think they could get the same numbers now, or the numbers they were getting before, by having by putting on a WCW show without Steve Austin and people like that?
I think they're going to struggle for numbers, but they may. But I think they may have ended up struggling for numbers in 4 months with the WWF show as well. I mean the numbers are going down anyway.
Because they lost the WCW audience, and they're going to have to get you're going to have to get that audience back, and they're going to have to have some of the WWF audience as well. In order to do good on Monday night, it's going to be WCW.
What they're going to have to do.
The one thing would be though that it would not be adding another 2 hours of wrestling a week. It would be replacing 2 hours of WWF programming with 2 hours of supposed WCW programming. So if you're a wrestling fan that enjoyed watching Monday and Thursday, you're going to see some different faces on Monday night, but it's not like you're going to have to be going out of your way to watch an extra 2 hours of programming to see these guys. So I think that this is a far better plan than adding another 2 hours of non-WWF wrestling on like a Saturday night at 11 to 1 o'clock a.m.
The other thing about this, The one thing where I think that this is the right move is that on Raw and SmackDown, what you would have is you would have some wrestlers that you would only see on Raw and some wrestlers that you would only see on SmackDown. So the storylines would slow up. You wouldn't have to burn through people by coming up with 4 hours worth of stuff with Steve Austin. For Steve Austin to carry these 2 shows a week, he only would have to carry 1 show a week, and then somebody else would carry the other show. And it theoretically, this is the theory behind it, is that with only 1 chance a week to see it, a lot of people now, because it's kind of a cooling off product, will go like, if they miss Raw, well, we can always watch SmackDown and catch up. And this way, if you miss Raw, there is no SmackDown to catch up. You missed the week. And and again, there's so many things that are changing, and I don't know where they're going to end up, and I don't know how to evaluate how it's going to be. And we're not going to know. I mean, we're really not going to know until September, October, November exactly what's right and what's wrong. There's going to be. I will say this: in November, we're going to look back and go, they made some really bad decisions, and probably they made some really good decisions. But what they are going to be, I got no clue, because they're making a lot of. I just admire the fact that they got the balls to make the changes. But some of them, some of the changes may not be good changes when all's said and done.
Yeah.
What about Norman Smiley? What's he doing right now?
He's waiting for his contract to expire, which should be any week now, and then he's going to most likely go to EMLL.
Okay, guys, thanks.
Okay. Let's go to, is it Charles?
Sean.
This is Charles. Sean in Pennsylvania. Sean, what's up?
Hey, how you doing? I had 2 things real quick. One, I was wondering, just from getting a sense of how the politics works in the WWF, I have this vision of people in the locker room blaming the presence of all these ECW guys on the failing state of the ratings right now.
Some people will.
I mean,
I've heard that.
Has this started yet?
Yes, it has. Whenever things go down, there's going to be finger pointing everywhere, and some of it's valid and some of it isn't. Some of it's a little bit valid, but yeah, it's been said.
Oh, jeez. I mean, that seems like such a real cop out, actually. I mean, considering that sure they can propose things and propose guys to hire. I mean, it's Vince's decision.
It's all Vince. Like, he deserves the praise and he deserves the blame. They're not all his ideas, but the bottom line is he's the one who says this idea is good and this idea is bad. And Vince has had, and I think Russo's the perfect example. He's had a hell of a track record of picking the good from the bad, considering the plethora that the guy probably came up with.
And very few people are going to say, that damn Vince, it's all his fault.
Oh, geez. I was wondering with this WCW thing, I mean, it doesn't look like it's going to work right now. I mean, the way they seem like they've blown the entire build-up for this whole deal. I mean, I really don't have any interest in seeing it at this point. And, I'm a hardcore fan, and, if I'm typical, then,
you
I have a feeling it's just going to blow it. I'm really mad I can't get Japanese wrestling.
Yeah, you may be right. Well, you can get it if you want it bad enough. It's kind of, but, we had a poll, and it was one of those tampered with polls. But the one thing about it is that literally nobody voted, and I mean nobody voted for the idea that they're handling this WCW invasion well. So that tells you something. I mean, like, you can tamper with it on the other categories, but when nobody votes for one of them, it doesn't matter how much it's tampered with. People don't think that one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez. Do you think things would have worked out a little bit better for the wrestling business as a whole if the Screen Actors Guild had strikes?
I don't think in the long run it would have made any difference. I really don't. I guess everything affects things in some way, but, one of the things we've seen with wrestling is it doesn't seem to be affected by outside forces. That's more of a convenient excuse than when things are bad.
Unless it's a Gulf War.
What? No, that's different. No, but like if in the fall when wrestling goes against football, this year, wrestling's probably going to get a bite taken out of it by football. But the fact is, when wrestling's good, it really doesn't get hurt by football. When wrestling is not hot, yeah, of course football will hurt it. So Survivor hurt SmackDown, but if SmackDown was at its peak and super strong, Survivor wouldn't have hurt it that much.
Dave, I have one last question. Have you seen that movie, The Replacements?
No, but everyone else here has.
I was watching that movie last weekend, and it came to me in a flash that this is where Vince McMahon got his idea for the XFL.
That's what everybody told me. I had a whole bunch of friends over, and they were watching at 1:30 in the morning, The Replacements, and I just said, I'm tired, I'm going to bed. And the next morning, people were going like, this is where Vince got the XFL idea. Maybe I should watch the movie.
It is. You will see it. I mean, you could probably imagine a light bulb appearing above his head. All right, thanks a lot.
Screw that producer. He's going to ruin. He started the wrestling thing going downward. Roland, what's going on?
Not a whole lot.
Did you see that movie?
No, I haven't seen the movie, but now I'm anxious. Actually, while these guys have been talking, I've been reading the review on Tough Enough, and I hope somebody taped it for me, because I'm actually marking out for this thing. I want to watch it.
Roland, real quick before we go to a break, I want to just tell everyone about the dates and everything and all the different things you got planned for late October.
Yes, King of Indies, Week of Legend. It's going to be an exciting time. It's going to start off with Wednesday and Thursday, October 23rd and 24th, which is going to be the APW Boot Camp Summit. All 16 participants in the tournament, we're hoping to have them here. They're going to go naturally through a private workout session in the afternoon, but we're going to open up the session to those with a VIP ticket package, and we'll have more ticket information probably in the coming weeks, probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. That's going to be fun, and I think it's going to be also useful to the guys participating. We're also going to invite other people not in the tournament to participate by private invitation, and I think it'll just be a fun time where people can exchange ideas, training methods in the ring, out of the ring, holds, high spots, finishers, just a useful thing, I think, for the industry. And then Friday and Saturday, we're going to have the King of Indies tournament, the first round on Friday night, and I'm not sure exactly how many. I'm sure we'll have 8 first-round matches, but we're going to add a couple more matches. Maybe Brian will be wrestling either on Friday or Saturday. And then Saturday is going to be the actual quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals of the tournament. There's going to be an after-hours King of Indies after-party, which only the VIP ticket holders will be able to attend. That'll be at the host hotel. All the wrestlers will be staying at the hotel, so eventually we're going to put a VIP travel package together for those in town and out of the area, even those that are in the area that want to stay the whole weekend in Vallejo, where the wrestlers are staying and hang out. That'd be kind of cool. On Sundays, the King of Legends barbecue, ribs and wrestling, so we're going to have some barbecue ribs and talk wrestling with some of the legends. I talked to Red Bastine on the phone last week. He should be putting together in the next 2 to 3 weeks, start calling some people, and we'll start releasing names of those that we're going to have attending the festivities. We're going to honor during the tournament some legends at intermission and stuff, and it should just be a whole fun week that I'm really looking forward to. Saturday, the day of the championship round, there's some exciting things going on during the daytime. There's a free amateur wrestling clinic that's going to be real neat, and I'm trying to get a legend or two involved with that. Also, a demonstration of the APW boot camp for those of you that have never seen a training camp operate. Then now's your chance to check it out. And for those of you that feel that you might have the ambition to pursue pro wrestling, either as a hobby or as a career, we're going to have a free mini camp. So bring your gear, and we're just looking forward to an exciting time. I even understand that Yada.com is going to get involved, and I just think it's going to be a fun week for everybody.
Yeah, we'll all be there. We got a full bank of calls, so we're going to get through people as quick as we can. We're going to start with Mike. Mike, what's up?
Hey, good evening. Hi. Yeah, I just came in when Roland was talking about, we're a wrestling company, and it's nice to be recognized by New Japan and Noah. And you alluded to, nothing against the WWF. I kind of think the WWF is wrestling too. What did you mean by that?
Oh, I think WWF is wrestling, and I think but they're more of an entertainment company as opposed to a solid sport product, like a New Japan or a Noah is. It's just a whole different, product. Not that it isn't wrestling, it still is pro wrestling.
Yeah, because I was thinking of when you meant that. Does that mean you wouldn't allow Donovan Morgan and those guys to work Jack Medley anymore? God forbid they wouldn't make the payday. You know what I mean?
No, not at all. Those guys, and I think they would fit in great with, and I think they've got a lot of great. I mean, Chris Benoit is a great wrestler. There's a lot of great wrestlers in WWF. I'm just saying that it's a pleasure to be working with Japan. That's always been my dream, coming up in the business and stuff.
I think that Dollop thing would be good for Noki. He's over, he brought over Ron Reese for a spot.
Yeah.
It just didn't work. Everybody tried with Ron Reese. It just didn't happen.
Yeah, even WCW tried him again and again and again.
And again. Dusty's still trying today.
I'm sorry?
Dusty's still trying today.
I just saw the Ross report. He said Ross said Sheldon Benjamin has a torn ligament in that bruise there.
Oh, really? So he's going to be out for that show for sure then.
6 to 8, looks like. Weeks.
6 to 8 weeks? That's too bad. He'll be off the show.
A question for Roland. I got a videotape. It's meant to be a parody, I guess, Beyond the Fat.
Probably something that happened once Blue Meanie came
out. Yeah.
Yeah, just everybody sometimes likes to have fun with me, which is cool. That just gives me a little bit more.
Well, what do they say? You spell the name right? That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say something. That Access Hollywood thing really kills any from last night. That is, when they say that no publicity is bad publicity. I mean, that Access Hollywood was really bad for WWF last night. Just want everyone to know. They did a piece on the decline of wrestling on television.
With Stephanie.
With Stephanie, where Stephanie was trying to explain the reason the TNN ratings were down was because a lot of people haven't been able to find the station.
Right.
God, how stupid does that make wrestling fans look out to be?
She didn't really look that bad, really.
I can't find TNN on my cable.
Yeah.
I don't think she looked that bad.
Yeah.
They repeated a lot of the stuff that was in the Programming Insider stuff about the UPN stuff, and they put up the graphics, with the arrows down, arrows up. You know what I mean? And, they put it graphically up on the TV, down 20-something%, and, the arrow going down from where they were there.
We'll see that they want, boy.
Well, like you say things are going to change and stuff like that, so.
They're going to change. That's right. The next month is a huge month.
And by the way, was there any truth to them really wanting to have Shawn Michaels be the stalker?
No. I can tell you that Steve Austin was the stalker, and when that fell through, it was Diamond Dallas Page, and I mean, there was nobody else.
I thought the thing last night was the tape. They do some very good editing on promos.
Boy, don't they? Boy, you wouldn't have even. I watched that, and I never, when I watched it, I never even thought it was edited until afterwards. When he's done, I'm going, wait a minute. He didn't say half of what I was expecting.
That was real good editing, to say the least. That gets an Emmy award there for editing.
Well, I have been at their SmackDown tapings when guys have missed moves, and I know that they're going to be edited out, and you just can't even find the edit. It's amazing.
In the Ross report, he mentioned about the announcing situation for WCW be settled soon. He mentions about Arn and the Office guys being backstage this week too. Do you know of any announcers? Would any of them be possibilities be old WCW hands?
Cole. They set it up perfectly last night.
Yeah.
They could do Cole. They could do Tenay and Hudson. They're still under consideration.
No Shivani, though, right?
Shivani, no. Shivani's given up on them, and they have not considered him. No one will say this, but I still believe that Lawler could be part of it. I mean, the bottom line is
the cat could come in now without China around too now,
Oh?
I never thought of that.
How about that?
That's a good point. Although I don't know how much China really was involved in her being gone. Although she may have been. That's an interesting. I want to tell you something about that China thing. Today's show really surprised me because I thought we were going to get email upon email about China. And
by the way,
two or three. It doesn't seem like anyone cares.
People, I've been looking at stuff and emailing people. People are going. I even emailed you. Said happy day.
Yeah, it's an amazing lack of reaction to this story that's supposed to be so huge.
I kind of said, she should have a meeting with Sonny and Sable in about 8 months and see where they are.
She will, and they will be. They'll have a meeting real soon. Sable and China are going to be meeting, I'm sure.
Yeah, they can do car commercials. They can do hey, you're the dealer.
They can finally have that big match on pay-per-view.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, some Mark guy can put on a pay-per-view and get 2,000 buys, and all the money can go to the two women.
Yeah,
that's right. He'll start at ground zero and go back and visit Kowalski.
Yeah, that'll be for. That'll be next. You'll see them on the Wrestle Express tour in England.
Actually, she'll be available in December. So.
Of course, and she'll sell for those women too. How about that?
No, she won't. That's part of the problem.
Count on
I just got down on my tongue when I said that. That was a little tough there. Have a nice weekend.
Okay, thanks a bunch, Mike. We're going to go to Mohammed in California. Mohammed, what's up?
This question's for Roland. Do you think that the next generation of wrestling school applicants will be mostly smaller guys?
I couldn't really hear him. He's real low.
Do you think that the next generation of wrestling school applicants will be mainly smaller guys?
I will always take smaller guys. I don't necessarily. I'm always hoping for the big guy too, because I know that still, even though the doors have opened wide open for the smaller guy, the industry still leans towards the bigger guys.
You know what surprises me on the independent scene is that with all of the money out there that the top wrestlers can have, one of the things that I expected was so many of these football, because, people in general are bigger than ever before, but independent wrestlers are actually smaller than ever before at the same time. And part of it's good because you get a better product with smaller guys. But I'm just surprised there's so many, football players out there that are huge, lineman types that don't go into wrestling when they see what, say, like Dwayne Johnson has done for himself, as a football lineman who went into wrestling, and Steve Austin, who was the same way. That if they're not good enough to make it in the NFL, that if they have a little bit of charisma, and, enough of them obviously grew up watching wrestling, that more haven't, come your way and come the way of other trainers.
Especially now with all the unemployed XFLers.
Or just XFL.
Maybe they all watched McMichael.
Right.
Yeah, maybe.
But you're right.
Anything else, Mohammed?
It's hard to believe that not more have come through.
Yeah. Let's go to Scott. Scott, what's up?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Hey,
I missed the first part of the show, and I imagine you guys talked about Tough Enough quite a bit, but what did you guys think about it?
I liked it a lot.
Yeah, so did I. I thought it was awesome. And I don't know if you guys picked this up, but there were quite a few indie guys up in there.
I recognized one, but I didn't.
Did you see Psycho Sam Dudley?
Champagne or something.
Yeah, there's this guy who...
Yeah, Champagne was there.
There's a guy who left up here as Psycho Sam Dudley. He was in there for about one shot. He's horrible, so I'm glad he didn't make it. Then there was Champagne, who, if you've ever seen Champagne's work, he's really good. And I was looking at this, and I'm talking to my friends, I'm thinking that, and I wanted to know this going into it, are they looking for guys, when they see a guy who looks like they have some, either they have a lot of knowledge for the business or they've been around a wrestling school, so, or they're actually a trained wrestler, are they not looking for those guys in particular?
I think that they were looking for guys who knew as little as possible.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Because I'm thinking, I don't understand how Champagne, I've seen some really awesome stuff with this guy, and he trained with who, like a 3 count in the Hardys, right?
Yeah, so I'm sure that's one of the guys that they wouldn't want.
Yeah,
because you don't want someone in there who just goes in there and can actually do stuff. I mean, then it's like it kind of would make people go, wait a minute, look at him. He's been in it for 2 weeks and he's flying around like that, and he's a ringer.
Yeah.
And the other thing is you don't want people going, they brought in a ringer.
Yeah.
Okay. We are totally out of time. I want to thank everyone for joining in. We will be back Monday after King of the Ring at 5.